The very first thing that's really important when you sit down at the wheel is there's a couple things. You want to make sure your clay is stuck on the wheel head, right? And that means no water here. You cannot have any water. You've got to just stick it on there and then you pat it into place. Now, what you're going for when you start throwing is you're going for something that's completely smooth, no lumps or bumps. So if you sit down and you put this on here and there's all these lumps and bumps sticking out from the piece, you're setting yourself up for a problem right off the bat. So when you sit down here, you want your clay to be really smooth all the way around it. So you really do spend a lot of time patting the clay, right, and getting it ready for you to throw with. Okay, so now I'm going to turn on this noisy wheel. Oh, what's happening? Doesn't want to start. So the next thing is that once I get this speed going, I'm going to reinforce that movement of pushing the clay down on the wheel head, right? So that's the very first thing I do. But I do it with water. You have to use water when you're throwing because your hands need to glide over the clay. And if your hands can't glide, if it's not gliding, you're going to stick onto the clay and you're going to pull it off center. And that's a great way to actually end up ruining your piece because you put a twist in. So if your hands stick to the clay, it's going to jar the clay and it's going to twist. You get these internal twists, which are really difficult to deal with. Okay, so here we go. First motion is down. Notice again, my knees are against the wheel. My arms are on my knees. So, and my hands are coming together. They're always touching. They're always working together. That creates a triangle. That makes me really strong when I'm working with the clay. So, first motion is down. Okay, again, reinforcing that sticking to the wheel. You need a lot of speed when you're centering, but not so much once you open the clay and start pulling the walls. So at this point, it's okay to go really fast. Those of you that are working on the kick wheels, you want to remember, you kick, 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 let go while you're kicking. Don't hold the clay. You're putting a twist in. If you hold the clay and you're trying to kick, number one, it's not going to go as fast as it can. But number two, you can put a twist into the clay and that's just annoying. So make sure, experience very difficult. Okay. So again, I'm going to I'm smoothing this out right now. Remember that you do not use your fingers, you use the palms of your hand, all these interesting parts of your hand, right? So what am I doing right now? I'm smoothing this and I'm compressing like crazy. It looks like I'm not doing much, but I'm really compressing a lot. And I'm compressing with this part of my hand and this part of my hand. So a lot of times my right hand is doing the work, right? Those of you that are left-handed, this is opposite for you. For right-handers, your right hand is doing the work. My left hand is bracing. And so my left hand is wrapping up and over the top of the clay and compressing the top as well as the sides. That's really important. So if you're throwing today and you get a lot of unevenness here at the top, it's because you're not compressing with your thumb. So wrap your thumb up over the top. Okay, so now I'm going to start moving the clay up and down. When I do that, it's more about pushing than it is about moving my hands up, okay? So this is something that people often do when they're learning, is they see the clay move, right? The clay's moving because I'm pushing on it. It has nowhere else to go. It can't go down, right? Just like our video that I showed you the other day. So it looks like my hands are doing this. That's not what's happening. My hands are really just pushing. And yeah, they move as the clay goes up, but it's because the clay is being pushed that it's moving up. The reason I say that, and I'm not going to demonstrate that right now because I will ruin this, but I see this a lot and I joke about it. It's like people are massaging the clay. You're going like this, right? If your hands are moving like that, you are ruining the clay. You're ruining your experience. You've got to just hold steady. It's a lot about just staying still and compressing like crazy. So do not do anything like this. No up and down massage motion. Okay, so now I've got it all tall. You can see some of the twisting in here. So sometimes what I'll do is I come in and I'm just compressing right down here. Did you see that? And that moved it up here, right? So I'm moving the twisting out of there. I'm trying to work that out. Even it out. I can feel there's a big twist down in there, so let's see. Hopefully I can. Okay. Now the hardest part in this process is pushing the clay back down. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways. One thing is you just push away from you, as I showed you the other day. Slowly, right? With my thumb wrapped over the top, and I'm supporting as I go down, okay? And I'm compressing as I go down as well. Another way to do it, which I did as a beginner, is you use your right hand and push down, right? I'm supporting with my left hand, and my right hand pushes down, and then I get this kind of fat ridge here, and I round my hand around that. So I'm just slowly rounding that down. I'll do it again, okay? Compress down. Round my hand around it, okay? Like so. So the clay is rotating pretty evenly right now. It's a little bit off right down in here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it back up again. When I was learning, I was taught that if you pull it all the way up and down 3 times, it should be centered. It's a nice idea. It doesn't always work like that, but try it and see where you get today, okay? The clay should always be moving when you're touching it. So here I am, I'm pushing. Clay's going up. Clay's not moving when you touch it. You're not being aggressive enough. So there's this really delicate balance between having the right touch, not enough touch, or too much touch. So I think Asia, you ripped yours off the other day, right? Yeah. So and she was pulling her walls, and She's going, good, 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 and then boom, all of a sudden she rips off the top half of her piece. You guys are all nodding. So you guys all had that experience. So that's just too much pressure. So you've got to slow down, you've got to be patient, and you've got to keep your consistent pressure all the way up. And in fact, when we get to pulling the walls, as you're pulling the walls, your touch actually kind of lightens as you go up. I'll show you that when I open it up. Okay. So the other thing to remember, and I did see this a little bit on Monday too, is when you let go of the clay, okay, you want to let go very slowly. If I just suddenly let go, that's going to push the clay and it's going to push it off center. It's really easy to throw things off center really quickly. You might be doing great and then you let go and you throw the whole thing off. And you've got to start over again. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go back down. So if you're really having trouble pushing the clay away from you and down, just do it like this. Push it down, round it down. Push down. It's easier probably, right? Round down. Okay. So notice, you guys, how much water I use. Over and over and over again, I'm getting water on there. So I'm making sure that my hands aren't sticking. Okay, so now I'm pretty close to being on center. How can you tell? You hold it and feel how it's rotating, right? Or if you're still not sure, like when I was learning, I found it really hard to know whether or not it was on center. So I would hold my finger up at top, halfway, and down at the bottom. And actually, the top is centered. Down here could use a little more compression. Now, the truth is, when you're throwing, you're constantly working on and off center. So as you get better with throwing, you'll find that at some point in the process, you might pull it off, but you have the skill to be able to pull it right back on. When you're learning, you don't have that yet. So your goal is to be on center when you go to open it up. If you're not on center when you go to open up the clay, you're going to find you have a really skinny wall and a really fat wall. It's almost impossible to throw when you have a skinny wall and a fat wall. If you're having fun and you want to keep going, go for it, but it's not a great way to learn, and it's going to reinforce some bad habits. So if that's the case, you find that you have that thin wall, thick wall, I would slice it off and start again. Just start over. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead, open it up. One last compression there. And again, in some of those videos the other day, you saw he did this, right? A lot of people will use their fingers like that. I use my thumbs. But it's totally up to you, whatever you find works. The most important thing is that you're looking straight into your piece and you're pushing straight in. This is really important, the way you open it. It's another way to throw it off center if you go in crooked. So you've got to keep those thumbs glued together. So I'm leaving about that much clay at the bottom right now. When we get to the T-bowls, we're going to leave a little bit more than that because I'm going to show you how to trim a foot on there. So, okay, so now I'm going to open up the walls. My right hand is going to be a wall. My left hand is pulling pretty aggressively out toward my right hand, but my right hand won't let it go any further than this hand. And the reason for that is because I'm compressing. I'm trying to compress that clay, and I'm trying to get those walls to stand straight up so that when I start pulling, I'm set myself up. The pot is already set up. It's standing up straight. It's doing what I want it to do already, okay? Remember also, you guys, the video the other day that I showed you. Let me just show you this. He did that happy face, sad face, right? But your work zone is here, right at the beginning of the rotation. So because I'm right-handed, my wheel is going counterclockwise. The beginning of the rotation is right here for me. If you're left-handed and you're going clockwise, it's going to be over here. But don't try to, somebody the other day, I don't remember who, was trying to work over here. You can't do that. Or over here, this is very common for people to be working on this side. You will throw it off so easily if you're working on the back side of that rotation. So always work at the beginning of the rotation. Really important. Okay. There we go. My left hand, it's not, that's a good question. It's not really pushing. It's more like it's, yeah, it's steady. And so I'm pushing against it, right? It's more, it really is like a wall. And I'm pushing against it. Okay, so right now the interior looks like that, but I want the interior to be squared off. So I'm going to do it again, and this usually does take two tries to open up the walls. Okay. You know what? So did you see that my hand just stuck right there, and it started to wobble because it was sticking? Sorry, who was asking a question? Yeah. You curl and you do both, actually. Yeah, at the beginning, when you're really trying to open up that base, the bottom, you're pushing with your fingers. But then when you're trying to straighten the walls, you're using the length of your finger. All the way up. Okay, so I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, there we go. So it's pretty much straight up and down. First thing I'm going to do once I've got it opened up like this is I'm going to compress the floor. Remember, if you do not compress, you may not realize it until after you fire it. It's really disappointing because you'll fire something and it'll come out and it'll have a huge S-curve crack that goes all the way through the piece and it ruins it. You can't recover from that. The piece can't recover. So the compressing really helps keep the clay really strong. Okay, so now I'm going to start pulling. And this is what forms your piece. Remember the other day I showed you, you can pull with your 2 fingers inside your hand, outside the edge of your hand. You could pull with your knuckle, which is what I do. It's kind of like, not really my knuckle, it's really like the side of my finger here. And that gives a lot of surface contact, which is why I like doing it that way. Some people will do finger to finger, but there's less contact with the clay that way. That's a little more advanced. Or you could also try using your sponge. This is going to affect the surface of your clay, but when you're learning, it's a good way to get that feel and have a lot of contact with the clay. So try different things and see what works. I can feel it's already a little dry, so I'm going to use my sponge over the top here and squeeze, and that coats both sides of the wall. Okay, now I'm pushing. And I'm catching a ridge right there. Now, I want to stay under that ridge. Okay, and my hands are too dry, so I've got to get that wet. And I'm staying under that ridge, and that's what I'm pulling up. And I'm distributing the clay all the way up. And as I go up, right about here, I have a little less pressure toward the top. And you don't pull over the rim. Go very slowly to the rim, and then you let go. You don't pull over the rim because it's really easy to pull unevenly over that rim, and then you're going to make the top uneven. Okay, so after you do your pull, you want to, again, get in the habit of compressing. I'm going to pinch with my left hand and round my right hand over the top. So I'm compressing that top rim. The other way to do it, which I do all the time, is I use the chamois. Or you can use a piece of plastic. And I just pinch. It makes for a really nice rim. All right, notice the chamois is nice and wet. And then I go back in and I compress the bottom of the piece. And now I'm ready to pull again. So I get the wall wet on either side with my sponge. And push. And then I slowly rise, pull that up. My touch gets lighter as I go. Up to the rim, and then I let go very slowly. So one of the things you'll notice, I'm compressing the bottom here, is that you have these throwing lines going up, right? And they're pretty consistent. My wall isn't very straight. Let me straighten it out. This tool, this wooden rib, is great for straightening out walls, especially if you suddenly get a wobble in there. When you're learning, it's a really good, and I just threw that off a little bit because I wasn't supporting it on the interior. So let me do this. But you get a wobble in there, use your rib to straighten it out. Okay, I'm compressing the top. pressing the bottom. You don't want to have so much water in here that there's a big puddle, because that really weakens your piece. So you have a little bit of water, but not a lot. So that's a delicate balance. Water does break stuff, so you want to have just really the right amount. And I think using the sponge like that does it. So now what I want you to pay attention to as I pull, this will be my last pull, is my pressure is going to stay the same all the way up. To the rim, and then I let go very slowly, okay? So what happens when you do that is you've got a consistency with the throwing lines because it's even pressure all the way up. If you suddenly push too hard and you get a thin area, you'll get that twisting that happens, and it's really hard to recover from that. You could certainly try, and the way to try would be to use your rib, but it can be really hard to recover from. So practice, practice, practice. The more you can come in and practice, the easier it's going to get.